Plumes is a classic because it says so much without directly saying it.
Plumes is a classic because it really delves in to how many different ways that love can look.
Oh, I love that. Florence is a classic because it personifies the soul killing aspects of systemic oppression without being didactic.
Florence is a classic because it is the epitome of a well done dare that resonates today.
This is our history. This is our legacy.
Hello, and welcome to This is a Classic, the Expand the Canon Theater podcast. We're your hosts.
Hi, I'm Teresa Cox, the 2023-2024 Director of Outreach and Engagement with Hedgehog Ensemble Theater.
And me, Emily Lyon, she, her, artistic director, and a fellow curator of Expand the Canon. And we're here to introduce you to some plays by women that are classics. Today we're getting into two classics, Georgia Douglas Johnson's Plumes and Alice Childress's Florence. And if you go to expandthecanon.com, and you should, you'll find this pitch for Plumes.
If you are looking for a piercing drama about family, poverty, and access to healthcare redolent of Osage County, consider this raw, tender one act. In Georgia Douglas Johnson's Plumes, Mother, Charity, grapples with whether she can afford medical treatment for her ailing daughter. Unsure if the treatment will be successful, Charity must decide whether it would be better to honor her daughter's life by way of an extravagant funeral instead. This play is a moving exploration of grace and dignity under the obscene circumstances of poverty and inadequate access to healthcare.
Oh, beautiful and heavy.
Yeah, it does definitely pull you in, and it's going to be a roller coaster of emotions
For
experiencing this
sure.
play.
Mm.
We'll also talk about Alice Childress's Florence. So since you'll already be on expandthecanon.com, you'll find this pitch.
If you're looking for an elegant, subtle, and subversive blend of heart and politics, Alice Childress works her magic again with Florence. Set in a train station in the Jim Crow South, Mama waits to board to New York City, planning to bring her daughter Florence home from trying to make it as a stage actress. A jaded white actress awaits the same train, and though first seeming to help, it becomes clear she thinks nothing of Florence's prospects, and Mama has to decide if she'll support or deny her daughter's dreams. This sinuous story holds the tension of rebellion and heartbreak, painting a vivid picture of the so-called white Northern ally erasure of Black joy, worth, and humanity.
Amazing. There's so much appreciation for the strength of living and
Mm.
surviving and having dreams, even against a backdrop of a system that might be stacked against you in both of these plays.
The strength of character, the heart, and the nuanced humanity that comes out from both of these writers is absolutely why they're classics.
Yeah, in terms of just the craft of writing, they are executed so perfectly and so elegantly. And it's hard to do that in a short play.
These were two of the first plays that we kind of knew would be on the list. They were ones we had read years ago. And so I'm also curious, I would love to hear a little bit about, like, were they both plays that you knew before, or just getting in touch with them again, or discovering them?
What's funny was, even though I was familiar with Alice Childress, I knew more about her than Georgia Douglas Johnson. I had never heard of Florence before, but after discovering it, I found out that it is actually appreciated by so many people who love Alice Childress. And everyone who I have encountered who has read it is a super fan of it.
Mm.
Consistently with these two plays, there was really no debate about them. And it was really interesting discovering more about Georgia and Plumes because She was a part of the Harlem Renaissance, but she wasn't living in New York. She was actually DC based. These weren't plays that were on my radar, which is why I'm really happy about Expand the Canon, because they should be on everybody's radar. They really are master works of American theater.
Mic drop. Absolutely. Couldn't say it better.
Legacy.
Plumes. What happens? One thing I think is really interesting about Plumes is in the character list, there are 4 characters listed, but only 3 of them speak. And the 4th character is Emmeline Brown, which the whole story is really about her. She is the daughter of Charity Brown, and Emmeline is unfortunately very ill. She's been doing very badly for quite some time now and is clearly in a lot of pain. And the story takes place in a 2-room cottage, not a very wealthy area or community or family. It's really an intimate, very cozy space that they're in. So you can hear Emmeline cough no matter where you are in the space. And her pain is just so present. So it opens with her mother, Charity, doing some laundry. She's had to save up every penny that she can. So she's getting paid to do someone else's laundry for $1.50. And her friend Tildy comes over to check on her, check on Emmeline, and they start talking and sharing some of those duties. Tildy says, "What can I do?" And Charity mentions that there's this white dress that Emmeline has always wanted. She finally got this beautiful lace to add, but she's not sure if she'll ever really get to wear it. She's asking Tildy if she can work on the hem, because if she needs something to be buried in, then she wants her to be buried in this beautiful dress she's always wanted. So there's this discussion of if she happens to die, they want the dress to cover her feet and let the hem out. Although, of course, the dream is still that she'll get to wear it and enjoy it and feel better. And that possibility maybe is on the table because there's a doctor coming by soon. He's come by before, but as Tildy and Charity discuss, a lot of times there's no promise with the medical treatment that's available. It's a fairly small town. The doctor's saying he might have to operate, but he's also saying he can't promise that's going to fix anything. And it would be a real hardship. Charity has so little money, right? She's doing laundry for $1.50, and the operation would cost around $50, she's told. And $50 is the same amount as a really beautiful funeral. Recently, someone in the community passed, and they really didn't have that much money for a nice funeral. It was very small, and it felt to Charity that it wasn't at all representative of how much this person was loved. And unfortunately, a lot of folks are passing in this neighborhood. They actually have a moment where they see a funeral pass by, and they note it's quite beautiful, actually. The horses have plumes, and the big plume feathers announce the status and seemingly the respect and love that their family has. And they notice, gosh, there's like 8 horses pulling it, and there's all this intricate decoration that is truly just feels like an honoring of their community members. And yet, after the funeral procession passes, there's still laundry to do, there's still hems to fix. And finally, the doctor arrives. Unfortunately, Emmeline is still not doing well. And the doctor says, yeah, the only thing you can really do is the surgery. And like I said, there's no promise that it will fix anything. There's no promise that it will do any good. But at the same time, you'll have a clear conscience because you'll know that you did everything possible to save her. And Charity isn't sure. She's really debating what to do, that she has so little money. Is she going to risk it on this surgery that may have no chance? Or does she save it up for those plumes? And she tells the doctor to give her a little time to think. So he says, okay, but every minute counts. So come get me as soon as you're sure. And Tildy and Charity discuss how it's tough and he'd basically take all their money and might kill her during the operation. The healthcare system is so, it's not even a system, just this doctor, putting your trust in someone who doesn't have that same connection to your family. Charity is just really wants to do right by Emmeline, and as she and Tildy are talking about what makes the most sense, unfortunately, Emmeline, well, the stage direction says a strange strangling noise comes from the inner room. And suddenly, Charity says to Tildy, having gone to see her daughter, "Rip the hem out, Sister Tildy." Before she even really had to make that hard decision, Emmeline passes. We know that Emmeline is probably going to get her plumes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so devastating. But I think in terms of glimmers of hope, when you see the cooperation that Charity and Tildy have for each other, when you see that it's an unwavering mother's love, and the question of, do you fight a unwinnable battle of unreliable, quote unquote, healthcare, or is the best demonstration of love honoring this child through a beautiful funeral? And being someone from the South, and this is definitely in our tradition today, really funerals are seen as probably one of the biggest love gestures that you can give to the person who's passed away. So giving them a funeral that is beautiful, and it really would have been really ingrained in people of that culture, is Southern culture, to think that was a necessity. It's a spectacle to show that their life was celebrated, that they meant something to someone while they were here. And what I like too about Plumes is the doctor is not the enemy here. Dr. Scott,
right,
I think to the best of his ability, he's doing what he knows how to do, and doing it with the intention that he's making a good faith effort to save this child. But from this other perspective, is that really the best decision? Because as you mentioned, the house is so small, you can hear this child groaning in pain throughout it. And I think seeing that stage would probably just be bone chilling. So then going through a surgical procedure, I had my wisdom teeth pulled, and it was very difficult to be around because of that amount of pain. So putting her
me
through
too.
more pain.
God, I can only imagine.
Yeah, putting her through more pain when this baby is already in all this pain, and it's not going to be worth it. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I love you phrasing it that way too. It really makes the options, the sanctity of her body, and celebrating that and caring for it in this beautiful procession versus the invasion of a really painful, likely unhelpful operation, right? And I also love that you were mentioning again how much camaraderie there is between Tildy and Charity. And Tildy is so reassuring, and I think it's just really refreshing and lovely to see just someone holding space for a really painful experience. She's not necessarily trying to fix it. There's nothing to do to fix it. They're just together. And I think that's so beautiful in this play.
And just one more thing I want to highlight, because from a writer's perspective too, one thing I really like to see writers do is what we call negotiation over objects. And when I see a writer do that, it really grounds me into the space and place that the play is taking. And is also a window into sort of the behavior and the psyche of the characters. And so that tenderness that we see with Charity and Tildy, a lot of that, it's not by them waxing poet like, oh, I care about you, I love you, and all being all sentimental. It's through the work they do with each other. It's through sharing the labor. It's through the dress. It's through the lace on the dress and all of that. And through that, we reveal that these are women who care about each other. Tildy is very admirable. I had a family friend whose son died in a tragic accident. And while this was years ago, I was very young when this happened. And while I cared about her and wanted to be there. I remember being so nervous going to visit her because
Mm.
it was so incredibly heartbreaking. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be around that pain. So I always admire people who can sit with someone who is in that much pain and be there and hold, like you said, hold space for them, because that is intense and it's palpable and you can feel it. And not only sit with her, but sit and work with her too, because the labor does not stop for that community because of where they are with their poverty levels. Yeah, so all of that is just, it's really fascinating.
Absolutely. Oh, shoot. I just remembered when you were saying about the negotiation of objects, one detail that I should have mentioned. Tildy really loves coffee, and Charity's making some coffee, and Charity actually asks Tildy to read the coffee grounds.
Yeah, yeah, I like that moment too.
So she's asking, like, what is the future going to hold? Tell it to me. Basically, tell it to me straight. This is so hard enough to handle that I could handle you telling me what the future is going to be. And the coffee grounds don't look promising. We get that sort of undertone, that harbinger before the doctor comes back in and says, I think we need to operate. And so I think it's also this, oh, the man of science is thinking, like, oh, well, of course, why wouldn't you do the surgery? If you can, you should. And it's also this balance of the coffee grounds, this natural knowledge versus really scientific, logical, I don't know, brute force in a way that is also at play.
Yeah, I would hazard even to say that in some ways it's the masculine and feminine energies too.
Mm,
I mean, almost more from an Eastern philosophy than how we think of it in the West. But in a way, it's the feminine world. Tildy and Charity's world is very domestic. It's very rooted in a lot of quote unquote feminine behavior with
mm,
the sewing and the laundering. But it's also spiritual with the coffee grinds too, a little bit on the mystical side, maybe even a tad bit superstitious. And then this logical, like left brain side that comes in through the doctor. He's the only male character in the play. He represents the establishment, but the establishment has let this feminine world down. The establishment
mm.
cannot save the child of the feminine world. It's really just interesting thinking about all the layers. And I just have to point out, this is a very short play. And for all of these motifs and these themes to be jam-packed in this tiny play is just amazing. It's really amazing to read, and I'd love to see a performance of it soon.
Me too. Yeah, 10 pages, and it's just so rich.
History.
So let's talk a little bit about Georgia Douglas Johnson. She's really freaking cool. I mean, almost all these writers, it's so rare that we're like, meh, she was just okay. Uh, but yeah, so Georgia Douglas Johnson was born around 1880, maybe 1877. We don't have a specific birth date, but she was born in Atlanta and was raised in Georgia. Her parents were both of mixed race. One was Black and Native American, and one was Black and European. And so she had a really interesting mix of voices and histories and educational styles around her. She went to school. She also I loved this. She taught herself when she was young the violin. She was
That's
self-taught on
amazing.
violin, right?
That's so boss.
No big deal. Just freaking brilliant. So first she goes to Atlanta University Normal School, and she graduates there in 1896. So that's mostly training to be a teacher. And later she becomes an assistant principal and worked with the labor department. So she does use this teaching background, but she had taught herself violin. She ends up also going to Oberlin Conservatory for Music and studies violin, piano, and voice. So just like all the talents.
Yeah, just so multi-layered. Yeah.
Ugh, and so cool that she taught herself and then was so qualified, talented, worked so hard that she gets into an awesome college for that.
Brilliant lady. And, you know, she married someone who was pretty prominent. He was a lawyer, and he wasn't the most supportive of her literary career. And yet she still was able to produce, which I think it was really interesting, especially when you're talking about women who came of age before women were enfranchised, and so being a woman of color. So she passes away in 1966. So Jim Crow is just ending there. So basically, the majority of her life she's living under Jim Crow. So she's born during Reconstruction, living most of her life under Jim Crow, and married to someone who doesn't really necessarily support her career, and still just slays with it, and still, and she still worked and had other careers besides being a writer, and was really involved in anti-lynching activism. And yeah, so it's important to look back at those women because they were able to be unapologetic about living their life to the fullest in their personal dreams and being of service to greater communities in an era where sometimes it might have been dangerous. If you're doing anti-lynching stuff in the early part of the 20th century, you may die under those circumstances. So I hope that encourages fortitude for those of us under current circumstances also.
Absolutely. And you're bringing up an excellent point. There's some reports that say that Georgia Douglas Johnson was the most prolific writer of lynching plays and lynching commentary and stories. So the fact that she was one of the people doing that kind of activism so prominently absolutely is notable. But as you were saying, she married this guy, a lawyer, who also was like kind of notable in the Republican Party. So President Taft gave him a job in DC, and they moved from Atlanta to DC, and actually she never left. She lived in DC for the rest of her life. And they ended up living on S Street. And so she ended up creating this infamous S Street salon, and it's such a cool gathering of writers, including two other writers who are on our lists, Angelina Weld Grimke, who wrote Rachel, and Zora Neale Hurston, who wrote Spunk. Both would just gather at this salon. Also, Langston Hughes, Marita Bonner, Mae Miller, lots of people would come. And I think you mentioned too, as far as we know, I don't think she ever went to New York. One of her plays was produced in New York, but she was well known in the Harlem Renaissance. Yet she was really bringing the Harlem Renaissance to DC, which is just an amazing feat.
For me, it was illuminating about the Black literati during that time. Because of the term Harlem Renaissance, we automatically think it's in that section of New York. But it really was, I think, a little bit more those who were very talented. They all knew each other and they all supported each other. I mean, the S Street Salon, man, I wish I could have hung out there. That would have been amazing.
I know, to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, the importance of community. I think the Black literary community really understood that and knew how to support each other, which is really just beautiful to see.
Entirely. And I'm sure there's more that is known about her life than I know. But in terms of community, her husband passed away in 1925. So they had been together for a while, and she had two sons. And so she had to be the main breadwinner. She had to support her family. And so she would take odd jobs, do some clerical work. And then also her poetry and her writing was one of the things that supported them, which is just incredible. She publishes this first collection of her poems, The Heart of a Woman. And it's that collection of poems that really sort of solidifies her identity and her notoriety in the literary and poetry world. And supposedly, it says somewhere that she wrote 28 dramatic works. I think I think she wrote that she wrote 28 dramatic works, but unfortunately, a lot of them were lost. Most of them weren't published or produced. So unfortunately, a lot of those dramatic works we don't have today. We know some of them. Obviously, we have Plumes, thankfully, Sunday Morning in the South, Blue-Eyed Black Boy, which are all really moving and powerful stories. And when we create these lists, we are thinking about what stories do we want to see on stage today. And there is a lot of value in going back and reviewing those. Those are also beautiful and heartbreaking. And gosh, I sure hope that the lynching plays don't start to feel relevant in this political climate. But certainly Plumes does and has continued to resonate.
Yeah. I'm so glad it's on the list. I hope it increases the attention that should and must be paid to Plumes. I think it's a real find, and I think a lot of people will really enjoy producing it or doing scene work with it. It's just an invaluable piece of American literature and a part of the American theater scene.
Mm. So tell me about Florence.
Yes, you know what's fascinating about Plumes and Florence is you have a character from whom we never see or hear. So you have
Mm.
Emmeline in Plumes, and you have Florence in Florence, who is a major character and who all of the plot and conflict is built around, and she is not even physically in the city where the play takes place. So, just like Georgia Douglas Johnson did with Plumes, we have the brilliant, brilliant Alice Childress. This is her second time appearing on the Expanded Canon list. And she wrote this very brilliant short play, Florence. And Florence is set in a train station in the Jim Crow South. And it's so great because just from the stage directions, we really understand time and place. There's a waiting room that has a quote unquote colored section and a quote unquote white section. We see restrooms labeled for white ladies, white gentlemen, and then colored restrooms and things like that. And the first character who enters is Mama. And her name in the play, how she's billed, is Mama. But it is later revealed that her actual name is Mrs. Whitney.
Mm.
But we'll call her Mama for now. She's a middle-aged African American woman, and so she sits in the quote-unquote colored section, and she is followed by her 21-year-old daughter. And we hear through their conversation, which is literally just probably one of the best examples of how to put exposition in, but still have it have objectives. Because her younger daughter, Marge, is seeing Mama off to the train station because Mama is going to take the train up from this southern town to go see her other daughter, Florence, who's in Harlem. And it is also revealed that Mama and Marge are caring for Florence's young son, Ted. So Ted's down south with Mama and Marge, and Florence is up in New York City. And Marge is pretty adamant that Florence needs to come home, help with this child. The family is also under a little bit of financial strain. Mama talks to
Mm.
Marge and says, if you need to talk to the landlord and explain to him that we may be short this month because of this trip or whatever, go ahead and do that. And if need be, we can ask another relative to help us out. And then Marge is basically like, that relative is struggling too. It's a lot of this feeling of robbing Peter to pay Paul. And we understand that Florence is in New York because she's pursuing being an actress, and she's also had some level of success. She's been cast in the play, and she's been able to send $25 a week home, but the play had a short run and closed. So now Florence has asked Mama for some money. So she's in that period that all of us who have tried to work as artists, as performers, it's a lot of feast and famine. So when it was feast, she was sending money home, and she's in a little bit of that famine period now. And Marge just really is struggling with what she feels like is Florence's audacity to think that she can go as a Black woman to Harlem and to New York and work as an actress. She says things like those people aren't going to let her act, and that a friend told her that when she was playing on stage, what she was doing was sweeping the stage. So I think this incredulity that these dreams can happen for people like us is really on display through Marge's character. But Mama is more hopeful that this dream isn't just a fantasy, but she's worried that the famine period will last too long. So the next character that enters is the train porter. His name is Mr. Brown, and he has a lovely exchange, and Marge exits. Mama, Mrs. Whitney, and the porter, Mr. Brown, they refer to each other as Mr. Brown and Mrs. Whitney. And this is going to be immediately juxtaposed with the fourth character who enters. But before I get to this fourth character, Mr. Brown's got a brother in Atlanta who is writing, and then he has a son who's attending Howard. So though he's working in maybe the less glamorous job, he has people in his family who are actively pursuing their dreams. And that the brother in Atlanta actually even saw Florence in a moving picture that featured actors of color. And so again, this dream is not totally just a fantasy for Florence because she has had these moments of success. So the fourth character enters, and this is Mrs. Carter, who is a white woman. And immediately she refers to Mr. Brown, the porter, as boy. So again, we know that he has a son old enough to be attending college. So bare minimum, he's in his early to mid 40s, bare minimum. So for this woman to come in and call him boy, that is probably some of the most expedient character revelations
Yeah.
that I just want to point out. Just like this, the tight execution of things. So she calls Mr. Brown boy, tells him that the cab driver left the luggage outside, and if he'll bring him back, she'll tip him. Mr. Brown exits, and in the beginning, it's more Mrs. Carter talking at Mama, not really having a conversation with Mama. But she reveals that she's in this town visiting her brother Jeff, who is writing a book. His last book was called Lost My Lonely Way. And she tells Mama it was about your people. Because apparently Jeff likes writing about Black people. And she kind of makes this little sly comment that, and she's like, he's so interested in your people that some of our friends think basically he's beginning to act and sound like you people.
Oh my gosh.
It's just wild. So in this book, Lost My Lonely Way, the book's heroine is Zelma, and she kills herself. She jumps off of a bridge because she has this moment where she looks into a mirror. And I believe that Lost My Lonely Way was probably trying to address the quote unquote tragic mulatto experience. But how Mrs. Carter describes it is that Zelma was a very fair skinned Black lady, and that she is devastated because she's so close to being white, but she's still a Negro. So she has to, and by the way, that's not my word. That's
right.
Mrs. Carter's word.
Oh,
And
gosh.
so she has to kill herself because she's not white enough. So Mrs. Carter is just like lamenting and waxing poetic about how tragic Zelma's life is for being near white. And Mama is pretty adamant. This is the moment when more of the exchange becomes a dialogue. She's like, that is not true. That is not true at all. I have people in my life who are fair skinned and look almost German and look as whiter than you do. And she mentioned someone, she was so white looking that the bus driver, and so remember, this is going to be in the Jim Crow South, so buses would be segregated. The bus driver thought Mama's friend was white, and she was like, no, I want to be with my people. Mama has real world examples of how this devastation over not being white, but looking white is actually not this psychological ordeal that Mrs. Carter and her brother feel like is part of the Black experience. So it's this real, it's almost a little mini rebellion that she has, and it's really great to see.
Talk about economy of words.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite lines is very simple. Mrs. Carter's like, yeah, and she jumps and drowns herself. And Mama's just like, why?
Yes. Yeah. No,
As
no.
if,
No, that's the
right.
perfect answer to that. Yeah. Yes.
So good.
Thank you for pointing that line out. Yeah. It's such a good line. It's so good. And it is such a resistant line too.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, Mrs. Carter asked Mama why she's traveling to New York, and Mama reveals that her daughter is there and she is trying, and this is direct from the play, trying to get on stage. So Mrs. Carter says, oh, a singer. And Mama says, no, ma'am, she's a... And before she can finish her sentence, Mrs. Carter comes back in and says, you people have such a gift. I just love your Negro spirit. and, and I just want, literally when I tell people I have an MFA in theater, they say, oh, you sing. I was like, I'm directing and playwriting. But it's the catch-22 because I actually do sing, but I am not a musical theater person. I sing because I enjoy singing. But the first thing people go to is with the singing. And so when I read that part, I just literally laughed out loud because I was like, that is so true and it's happening today. Hey, I'll go back to the summer.
But so real. So real. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So finally, Mama's able to get out that Florence wants to be a dramatic actress. And Mrs. Carter reveals that she actually is an actress in New York, too. But she tells Mama, you must make her stop. She says that even for her, Mrs. Carter, work has been minimal, and she hasn't gotten a lot of work lately. But Mama, this is, in Mama's experience, Mrs. Carter is like one of the few people she's actually encountered who is someone who's connected to the theater scene in New York. So Mama does ask Mrs. Carter to help Florence. And Mrs. Carter actually agrees. She says she'll connect Florence with this woman named Melba Rugby, who had been working in California, but is moving back to New York to direct I think it's a musical. And then she basically asks questions about Florence. Like, Florence is a good girl, yes. And Mama's, yeah, she's a good girl. And she hasn't been in trouble. And then this is, again, just the expert precision of Childress's playwriting. And it's easy to miss this line, but Mama says the only trouble she had was when her husband was killed during voting time. So anybody who understands voting rights up through Jim Crow, because Southern states were so afraid of the enfranchisement of Black folks, they created poll tax and literacy tests and grandfather clauses and all these things to try to disenfranchise Black people from voting. So through just that one line, we know that Florence's husband probably defied and challenged Jim Crow laws to assert his right to vote and lost his life for it. So there's within this family a spirit of resistance, which may motivate Florence's behavior too. And so Mrs. Carter's like, great, I'm so glad she's a good girl, and she can work for Melba, and Melba will get her a place to stay, and I'll tell Melba just have Florence do some just light cooking and cleaning. And that's when it's revealed, like, oh, Mrs. Carter's not going to help Florence with her acting career. Her quote unquote help is going to be in offering Florence a position as a domestic. And so there is actually a teeny bit of a standoff, and there's a silent moment. And then Mama tells her, you actually probably need to go back over to the white section because you're breaking the law by being on the colored side. Another example of Childress having lines that are loaded with so many layers of meaning. And Mrs. Carter says, okay, I need to go to the restroom. I need to powder up and fix up. And so she exits. Mr. Brown re-enters, our porter, and Mama asks him to put something in the mail, which is later revealed that it's the check that she was going to use to bring Florence back home. And then she gives him the lunch that she was going to carry for the train ride. And so basically Mama decides she is not going to go and bring Florence home, and that she's going to send her a message that basically says, keep trying. That is the quote. And Mama goes back home. And so there you have Florence. It's so much. And again, not that many pages, but so much is said in so few words.
You so beautifully brought up the economy of boy, setting up so much of the character. And I do love that on the opposite end of the play, when Mama gets really upset about basically this white woman being like, oh yeah, your daughter has no chance, so I'll let her be a maid. Mama grabs Mrs. Carter's wrist, and the line is just, child.
Yes.
And I love that, like, cyclical people who are adults using youth as sort of a cipher for, like, this very cool moment of getting to flip that script on Mrs. Carter.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thanks for pointing that out. That's really powerful. Yeah. But it's also subtle too, because boy to me is so overtly disrespectful. But the child I don't think Mrs. Carter clocked that it was the reversal that Mama was doing. But it really is this moment where you see Mama standing her ground, and that she's not going to let this woman's delusion affect her daughter's dreams, which I think is great.
History.
Should we talk a little bit about Miss Childress?
I love her. Let's
She
talk
is
about her.
the best. So she was born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1916. The name she was given when she was born was Louise Henderson. And her father was an insurance salesman. Her mother was a seamstress. Her parents separated, and she moved to Harlem and was raised by her grandmother after their separation. So her grandmother really encouraged Childress's interest in learning. And so Childress, in a lot of ways, self-educated herself by frequenting the New York Public Library. And this was fascinating to me when I first started learning more about Childress. She did not even finish her secondary education. But, all of this independent studying really allowed her to be this force in American theater. So, yeah, Alice's husband is Alvin Childress, and they both joined the American Negro Theater in 1939. So, Florence is actually Alice's first play, and somebody who bills herself as a playwright, it really is going to put us all to task that on her first play, she wrote this masterpiece overnight.
Well, and she wrote it on a dare.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, okay, put us all to shame, because I will not tell you how long it took me to write my last play.
Well, to be fair, though, the dare was from Sidney Poitier, so,
there you go.
Because apparently the story goes that he was like, oh, a great play can't be written in one night. And I always love it when a woman writer is like, oh, really? Let me show you.
Find out.
And she absolutely did. And here we are, talking about it many years later. So thanks, Sydney, for not believing, because you're wrong.
Yes. Oh, gosh. And so she gets a reputation for being a liberation writer as she progresses in her career. And I was born 63 years after Alice. And even with me being born post Jim Crow, if you have a South Carolina experience, it's going to be in the forefront of your mind of issues of race and issues of class and issues of dream deferred and who gets to do what and how other people see you and how the structure and system works for you or against you. And so for me, I'm like, of course she was going to write about that, because she is writing these plays which are unapologetically addressing these issues. She becomes a target for FBI surveillance, but thank God they didn't stop her.
Yeah.
She continues to write more plays into the 60s and 70s. She also wrote other forms of literature too. She wrote books and other things. So she was just very, very prolific. But a lot of the plays that we know her for would be Trouble in Mind, The Wedding Band, Wine in the Wilderness, and String. So just a super fan of Alice Childress. All theater artists should be very familiar with her play. I would encourage all writers to really look at her work, because if you want to see expertise in the craft of writing, and especially for American drama, her plays really demonstrate that with the highest level of effectiveness that I've seen with any type of writer. Like, her plays just deliver it consistently.
She's brilliant. And I also just want to shout out, as there are all these connections, we were talking about community being supportive. Supposedly, Angelina Weld Grimke, whose first play was produced by the NAACP, apparently, like, W.E.B. Du Bois, who also was a founder of the NAACP, he was a big inspiration to Childress. And apparently they talked, and Shirley Graham Du Bois, who is on our list, also apparently encouraged Childress to write. And so I think just harkening back to that conversation of the importance of supportive community, of having other artists in your corner, and how beautifully intertwined these excellent writers are. It's just so important to lift each other up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's more information on Alice Childress if you want to go back to our very first season and listen to the Wedding Band episode. You can hear more. And of course, there's always more that you can dig into on any of these writers. But yeah, she's just freaking brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for this Plumes and Florence edition of This is a Classic, the Expand the Canon podcast. If you believe in the importance of expanding the canon, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe to this podcast.
And then hit the share button and forward it along to a friend, a colleague, a professor, or, maybe an enemy who you feel like maybe they'll be a better person if they read a good play.
Absolutely. And to make it easy to find, read, and produce these plays, you can sign up and subscribe to expandthecanon.com.
Woohoo! Awesome.
It continues.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were...
That's okay. I liked the woohoo, though.
I was like, yeah, we're done.
Almost. So close.
Okay. For info on what's up next, you can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, or join our mailing list. You can also support this effort by buying some Expand the Canon swag,
To brag to your friends that you're changing the future of classics,
reading and producing these plays as classics,
and reaching out to us to partner on them.
or straight up donating to make all these efforts possible, which you can do from our website, expandthecanon.com.
Again, I'm Emily.
And I'm Teresa.
Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Thanks. This has been fun. Thank you for letting us talk about some good plays.
Yeah,
Yes.
read them both. Read them both.
Woohoo!